Krista might be taking that. There's another one over here. Do you want? Okay, we got a pretty lengthy agenda, so there's people here, so let's get started. To call the Jamestown City Council work session to order. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Sheldon.
Here.
Brackman. Here. Karuba.
Here.
Reynolds.
Present.
Faulkner.
Here.
Russell.
Here.
Larissa.
Here.
Esplin.
Here.
Mills.
Here. Thank you. At this time, we give the opportunities for the public to speak. If you would like to address the council tonight, please state your name and address and limit your remarks to 5 minutes. Anyone here would like to speak to the council publicly?
My name is Gary Mooney. I live in the Hotel Jamestown, right down the street here. I'm here to address the state of the city, and I would like to relate to my latest newsletter. The city council and city administration and the judicial constitutional division of government is adversarial split between administrative, executive branch, legislative, and judicial. And there's a fourth estate of governmental power, which is affording the speech protected power of the press. Both speech is commercial and free speech. Commercial speech is paid through advertising revenue or donation by public underwriting. This is amplified speech, to take your voice and spread it to a larger audience. Free speech is easy on a soapbox, but not very many people can hear you on a street corner. I'm going to address the print media, which maintains a consistent, fairly stealthy presence in attending these council meetings. Reports of the Post-Journal are accurate and consistently current to the legislative process. I must thank Timothy Frutt for his time in interviewing with me. I'm going to cite my own JamestownComedy.org publication. It's an honest and friendly observation and satire. This opinion page is where I expect both as it is and my reflections on how it better might be. I'd like to cover the radio coverage. Electronic media is a very popular, that people can hear through the electronic media what we're saying. That is crucial and critical. There's a pool of radio coverage. Media One Radio Group, Veteran Station News Director Terry Frank, and teams together with station manager Jason Sample and his associate Julia Cecil Headley at Public National Media. These two radio networks effectively cover the audio in the room for recording. I wish to thank Terry Frank, Media One, for sharing history and his true knowledge and prolonged interview with me. Thank you, Terry. Also, I wish to thank Jason Sample for many honest discussions of current facts which we perceive then. And I have requested an interview with Julia Cecil Headley, National Public Radio and Public Relations Director of Reg Lene Center. I've asked for a interview for this publication. Her response was no. Cable access. The City of Jamestown, New York municipal webpage. This, in my opinion, is the best, most complete record of council work sessions. This record is unedited and goes without commentary or summation. It is just the meeting as it is. Website listed on my newsletter. Finally, there is Western New York News Now. This popular community webpage is dedicated to televised reporting daily local news. This is a largely organization composed of youthful interns and less than fully experienced video enthusiasts. They are taking on field reports and turning in field assignments with very good performance. The total live production is sometimes technically challenged, which I understand is miscommunication between the networks and the technical outputs. Audio often falls out of sync on Facebook, and I offer my assistance and my technical expertise if ever they wish to pick me up on that. I think that the most important thing is that reporting of these meetings is accurate, unedited, and without redaction. I find that any reporter who does redact portions of this meeting with a self-interest, I find that reprehensible. And I really praise the press corps that is covering this meeting. And thank you, press corps.
Yay. They're here.
Thank you. Is there anyone else like to speak? Council?
Okay, so I'm just going to take up a couple minutes because I already met with the housing committee and it was a very wonderful meeting. My name is Jade Shirey. I am a lifelong resident of this area, and I am going to be working with the county and hopefully the housing committee and the Department of Development to bring change to lead poisoning in this city. I feel that not enough people know the severity and that it is even an issue anymore. I've reached out to the mayor's office, several people that are sitting in this room. We are allowing 60 children a year to be poisoned in this city, and until hopefully now and starting tomorrow, have not really been doing a whole lot of proactive remediation in that area. This is something that affects us as an entire community, our school systems, our police, and I am looking forward to spending my time in the next year or two, or however long it takes, working with the people in this room to make sure that no child is negligently poisoned in this city from here on out. So thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Jade. Anyone else would like to speak?
Robert Sisley, 20 Barker Street, Jamestown, New York. I'm here again trying to be earlier than last year about the deer problem in Jamestown. We have a very bad deer problem in Jamestown. It's only gonna get worse after May because they're gonna have their fawns. You know, I look out my door, I live on between Allen Park and Foote Avenue. And when I see 10, 12 deer a night in my front yard, walking down the street, there's a problem. I get an anonymous phone call last year, a guy telling me, well, one of your councilmen is feeding the deer. So if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. And, well, his wife likes the deer in her backyard. Well, you know something? Some people don't like the deer in their backyard. And, you know, you write citations up, you should probably talk to some of your council people too, because it was a no vote for him, and it's getting to be a bunch of crap that we can't put any flowers out, we can't fix up our yards because you have deer eating up every tree, every bush, every flower that you have. And it's got to be done, something's got to be done. There's other cities. What I'm asking the council to do, if they get a committee, which I heard that they're going to have a committee, every council person should write a list of questions now, so we have 9 months before hunting season to get answers. Don't bombard them with questions the last day when it's time to vote and say, oh geez, you know, we can't vote for it now because you don't have the answers. Give us the questions now so we can find out what municipalities are doing it successfully, how they're doing it, and what what their communities are like. Because I'm sure that there's other, I know there's other places around. Mill Creek Township has a deer program going right now. There's others around the country. It's got to be done because there's I don't care if you donate the meat to the food shelters. There's people around here that need food. A lot of homeless people, a lot of people that need it and would appreciate it. This is a problem that's been going on for years. It's getting worse. Last year I talked to some people at WCA Hospital. They said there were more tick tick-related people coming in than ever before. So it's getting worse every year. The city's got to do something, Mr. Mayor. And talk to your council people about feeding them too. And don't say, well, they're deer feeds, or they're bird feeders. Because when they start putting dog dishes out in their backyards too, that's not bird feed. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to address the council? Seeing none, we'll move on to our committees. We'll start with Kim, you want to do finance? I know there was quite an agenda. We didn't get through the entire agenda, so I'll have to get to the point where we're at, and then we'll continue from there.
I will read them all and we can discuss them all as a whole. First resolution, whereas the Board of Directors in the Jamestown Local Development Corporation held a meeting on March 15th, 2023, gave preliminary approval for the grant to the Chautauqua Watershed Conservancy of $327,935.00 for the purpose of the Chautauqua River Improvement, Stabilization, and Restoration. Whereas the ratification of any American Rescue Plan grant funds over $100,000 requires the vote of the City Council of Jamestown, New York. Now therefore be it resolved that the Jamestown City Council hereby approves the Jamestown Local Development Corporation grant to the Chautauqua Watershed Conservancy of $327,925.00. As noted, this was approved by the JLDC last week, and Crystal is going to comment a little bit further about what this entails and what part of the river this entails, and the money that was previously set aside that covers this.
Sure. So, if you all recall, we requested and allocated, and you all approved $500,000 in American Rescue Plan funding to go toward the Chautauqua River Basin Activation Project. So it's part of the matching requirement that will go towards monies received from the state. So this money that is being requested has already been allocated, so it's pulling from that allocation to be able to move forward with the rest of the basin activation project. So many of the activities are specifically related to restoration and stabilization of the river bank in the Chautauqua Basin area, and then also removal of some debris and any sort of objects that might be, or obstacles that might make the river itself not unnavigable. So there's a number of different obstacles, particularly in the basin area. So this will remove, some dead trees, things that are floating or that have kind of made their way into the bottom of the river that should be removed, and then allow for stabilization to happen in order for the rest of the project to move forward. And then Tuan leaders from the Chautauqua Watershed Conservancy will be available next week, should there be any questions or any more information that council would like to ask of him. Anything else?
Presentations.
Oh,
So if you want to introduce them. I'm sorry, I forgot that there was groups here to present through, since we're on the.
yeah, do you want to do
Yeah,
that
go
now?
ahead, let's do
Okay.
that so we can.
So just a
jumped in.
reminder, this is the joint session with the JLDC board, so we do have a handful of members of the JLDC here. Tim Odell, our American Rescue Plan Grants Administrator, is gonna get up and make some introductions, but the purpose of this is to give some opportunity for the business owners who are seeking some grant funding. Council was presented with their requests. I believe it was the last session, or it was in March,
session.
so it would have been in February. And so they will be coming back for a vote at the voting session. So we wanted to give council an opportunity to ask some questions about their projects and give them opportunity to speak about their businesses and their projects as well. So we'll start with Tim, if you'd like to go ahead, and then we'll move into allowing the business owners that are here to share with us about their projects.
Thank you so much, Crystal. Good evening, everybody that's here tonight, and thank you very much for the council members for your time. First and foremost, there are a few introductions in order. I would like to introduce Mr. Jeffrey James. He is the owner of The Labyrinth, as well as Mr. Doug Scudi, the owner of Summit Wealth Management, and Mrs. Christy Swab, owner of Panache. All three of these businesses applied for ARPA funding under the Business Expansion Building Acquisition Grant to invest in their business and expand them and invest back into the city of Jamestown. All of their businesses have been in Jamestown for the past couple of decades and are very large staples in our community. All of these businesses are going under multi-$100,000 projects to take their businesses to new heights that have been planned long before ARPA even had existed, as they all have a great deal of skin in the game for their projects. The businesses before me have undergone the greatest public health crisis in American history and have pivoted in very challenging times and showing the true strength of what it takes to be a business owner. And without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Jeffrey James of The Labyrinth to speak. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jeff James. 2007, I opened The Labyrinth. Press company is a coffee house, kind of like a late night music venue and just hangout spot. And since then, it's grown into now a full service restaurant. We opened Brazil Crapper and Wine Lounge upstairs in was that 2013. Yeah, we survived COVID. We worked really hard at it, and great crew. You know, we put all our minds together and just powered through it. And I feel like we're stronger than ever. We did open up a parklet out front, which added extra seating, and it put a lot of strain on our small kitchen. And so most of this expansion is about expanding the kitchen space, and we decided to also expand the seating area as well. And we kind of had a decision to make, and this was pre-COVID really, whether or not to expand out back and try and make the kitchen just a bit smaller out back, but it was going to basically be a huge venture with very minimal space to that really add on to the building. And so we were, before COVID hit, we were looking at purchasing Maurice's building next door, number 14, East 4th, and we were taking some steps to do that, and then COVID hit, so it put us back. And then it became available again, and we purchased it December 2021. We have reached out and we secured funding from the IDA to put toward the project, and it's working capital to get it going. We've been, the project has kind of been delayed, waiting to see what's going to happen here, but we have moved forward some with basically, emptying out the spaces and getting the ready and planning. Without this funding right here, I don't see like what the next step path forward is to get the spaces to the level of a functioning kitchen down here, which is my number one goal is getting that space on the basement level to basically add 600 square feet to the kitchen space to be able to serve the population. Do you guys have questions for me?
So you're looking basically to expand your kitchen from what I was reading earlier today, from about 250 square feet to triple up to about 600 square feet, is that correct?
Right, actually we would be adding, I plan on making the full side over there, which is 600 square feet in the kitchen space. There might be some customer area in the front. I'm not totally sure if it's going to be feasible or not.
And then the second floor, you're talking about having a seating area there, and you're gonna have like a New York style pizza where you can buy pizza by the slice, or you can buy pizza by the pie.
That's my plan, yeah. So we went back and forth on the idea of like, well, should we just make the labyrinth bigger? Should we make it into kind of like what I did with Brazil, just kind of the Brazil lounge experience, but it's all kind of tied together. And that's right now. That's my plan is to basically upstairs and down over there would look like, you know, basically pizzeria, possibly takeout down below if there is accessibility there.
Then the long-term goal, your upper floors, you wanna do some sort of apartments?
There's an apartment there now, so that would be the last phase, is to
Right.
renovate that to the same level as our other apartments above Brazil is. You know, so. Above
How
Brazil,
many-
there's a Airbnb, 2-story Airbnb. It's really nice. My previous employee and good friend John Bell owns that and rents it out. And then the other apartment's really nice too.
So you, based on your email you sent earlier, you secured a $100,000 working capital loan from the IDA, is that correct? How many people own Labyrinth in Brazil, and who are they besides yourself?
Okay, so it's me and my wife started at 50-50, and then in the construction of Brazil, and then also in the construction of the reconstruction of the Labyrinth kitchen before, when we tripled its size, and it was like too small. We attempted to get city loans for those and were denied. And Frank Bessie, my good friend, he ended up loaning the money for both and then converting a large share of that over to ownership.
So Frank is part owner as well?
Yep.
So yourself, Frank, your wife, is there anyone else?
No, that's it.
Okay.
And Frank owns 30%, my wife owns another 70%. And then as far as the building goes, Frank owns 10% and me another 90%.
So is he gonna be part owner of the new building as well? Does he have any
Well,
interest in that?
It's basically, so we have a holding company, called Thurston Development, which owns the building, so he owns 10% of it.
Then, I'm gonna see you tomorrow morning and you're gonna take me on a tour, correct? And show me everything that you wanna do and
For sure.
about your kitchen and how you're gonna blow it out and
And I
everything.
need to get
I mean, I would recommend to all the council members for all three of these businesses, it's real easy to look at a piece of paper, read it, you know, and not try to get a vision. I would recommend to the business
Yeah.
owners that are here, to invite all the council down and physically show us what you wanna do before it comes to a vote. I mean, it's real easy to sit here in a room, look at some papers, talk about it, but let's see what you're gonna do.
Absolutely.
Jeff, could you talk a little bit about the impact of that the parklet has had on your business?
Yeah, it's really been kind of explosive in the business, and just having that visually out front for passerbys to see all summer long. It almost feels like empty out there in the winter, but basically, yeah, it's just in doing that, we went from a counter service business to more like a full service business, just because COVID, like people couldn't really necessarily walk around as much, but logistically, serving drinks to people, food and whatnot, counter service just didn't work anymore, and it's been really well received by our clientele. They obviously like full service, and it's been great.
Did it have any impact on your sales?
Yeah, absolutely. Sales, I don't have an exact kind of percentage, but yeah, I mean, it allowed us to go. But when we reopened from COVID, we were down to I think 8 core full-time people that have been with us for a long time, and we were doing mostly takeout. Then we went back and forth with opening, not necessarily closing, just dine in, not dine in. But as soon as we did that, we basically got right back to on track to where we were before. Before COVID, we had 19 employees, I believe. Now we're up to, I think we're 22 right now. In the summer, we'll probably add a few more positions. I definitely foresee adding at least, I would say, 4 to 5 full-timers and some more part-timers with the additional kitchen space. Also, so, yeah, for seating, we have, over 80 seats inside. It did add 50 seats outside. The stone bar down below wasn't really utilized that much. We've got more matching seats and bar stools for this year, so hopefully that, gets more utilized this year, but that would be 50 seats outside, 80 inside, and then 30 to 40% of our business is takeout as well now, so it's, the kitchen's definitely pushed the bill.
I also see on here, current sales tax for 2022, you paid $76,000 in current sales tax, and you're also paying, property tax for your properties at $10,000 a year. Does that include the new building that you just purchased?
Yeah, so
Or would
that's,
that be an
so
addition?
there's 3 buildings there, and so that's property and school.
Have you applied for any other funding for this project, say through Jamestown Renaissance Corp., Gebby Foundation, anything like that?
I have
Okay, so just your IDA loan and then what you've come to the city for with a VIVA fund.
Did you get some PPP money?
We did, and that's, that helped us get through with wages and, just being able to get through the supply chain issues. The amount that we have to, keep on hand now, our inventory used to be roughly about maybe $15,000 inventory between, the beer and wine and all the other supplies, and now it's at least 30,000. I'd say it's more than 35, that we have to keep on hand. It's like, every other week, it's something else that's random that's, all of a sudden it's out of all over the country. And we have to find some odd replacement for it, and we have all these leftover stuff.
But was the better share of the PPP money forgiven, or all of it?
Yeah.
And what was that figure?
So there was 2 rounds of PPP. I believe the first round was 50,000, and the second round was 80,000. It basically went to wages.
Okay.
There's a portion of that you have to pay to your employees. I don't know what it is, 30, 40%, I believe PPP had to go to your employees. Did you lay employees off during that period of COVID?
We shut down from March 16th to August 5th, I do believe.
I mean, were they actually on unemployment, receiving unemployment?
They were on unemployment, yeah.
So they were obviously eligible for the extra money on top of from the government for the
Yeah.
unemployment. And then you were paying a PPP money on top of that?
No, the PPP money didn't come until we reopened. Then they were paid for that.
Thank you so much, Jeff. We really appreciate it. Now I would like to turn it over to Christia Kanash.
Hi, thank you. On November 7th, thank you for taking the time to listen. November 7th, I did send a letter to all of City Council stating our case, stating our story, details, much more comfortable for me to speak through a letter than like this. I've attended some meetings, tried to be up on what's happening and be a part of this process. I would say in 22 years that I've been open, I can't say as though I've really felt a part of a city's plan, felt a part of the growth plan, and I see this as an opportunity to be a part of it, to participate in it, to be a part of the tourism that will come through the comedy center, the Lucy Desi. That's not something we would ever have thought we could increase our business traffic with. As a hair salon and a simple day spa, you're not gonna get tourism to come through our building. Currently, we see about 250 people a week come through our building, and that's just mainly local. Pre-COVID, we had a lot of wedding parties, a lot of group parties we saw on the weekends. So we did see some tourism, but we really lost that through COVID. Hoping to get that back as our staff increases again. We were closed a total of 10 weeks for COVID, completely closed. No business at all. everybody got sent home. We are a fully employee-based salon, so thankfully, we paid into the system. My staff was able to collect unemployment. They were also raring to go when we were able to open up again on June 2nd, and they showed up for me. They showed up for our business, and it was a struggle, let me tell you. Face masks, face shields, aprons, plastic aprons. I really questioned if it was worth it. But we made it through. It definitely hit our bottom line that year. I would say that we have gotten our volume back. Our employment is still a little bit of a struggle. I came initially to the city to ask for help with that, workforce development. I was hiring people that went through the COVID hands-on training. They did through Zoom. They just got pushed through. They had no skills at all. So I was hiring extra people to take on the cleaning, to spread out the hours. There was so much extra cleaning. There were so many extra hours. In order to take our staff and put them all in there and allow them to work, we could only work every other chair for a year. We were cut in half, on top of being closed for 10 weeks. So we had to stay open longer. We were open 7 days a week for a while, a short period of time, longer shifts. It took extra assistants, it took extra desk staff, just to support our service providers so that they could get back the income they were used to. Asking for workforce development came from understanding that Chautauqua Opportunities, some programs like that with the city, incumbent working programs I had learned about. I came to the Department of Development to ask them if there's something they could help me take some of these young staff and put them back in retraining. Nothing really worked out, but things kept evolving, other things kept evolving. At one point, it was even considered, I was considering even maybe starting a school in the city of Jamestown. It was an exciting idea. It was a big idea. We talked about it a little bit, and the opportunity of the building next door came up. This is the third time that came up since I had been in my building. Didn't want to take the risk on it. Wasn't a really good time, but felt that maybe for the first time we could be a part of the city's growth plan. And the idea, it wouldn't fit a school. It's not big enough for a school. We don't have the parking for a school. That just was not going to happen in that space. There's no room there for that. So coming up with services that could enhance our current offerings, complement each other, shift the percentage of payroll I have. I have a very, very heavy payroll because it's a one-on-one service business. It's a very heavy payroll. Nearly 60% of our income goes to payroll. So if I can have other services where that percentage is flipped, then it feeds the business better. It feeds my front desk. It feeds training. It feeds amenities inside the business. It stabilizes us. So that's where the idea came to add flotation. I had a plan for 4 tanks. We've reduced that to 3. I'd like to put in a salt cave similar to what you'd find out in Ellicottville. Also sauna and cryotherapy. They are all things, excuse me, I need a drink so bad. I didn't bring a thing with me.
We'll find you a bottle of water.
Oh my gosh.
We'll get you a glass of water.
We'll
I
find you a
cannot
bottle of water.
So warm in here.
It's
So
like
the,
Shark Tank here.
it is. I just want to read from my.
It is like an arcade.
I'll ask you a quick question.
Yes, please.
Some people might not know, but there's basically 2 types of hair salons, and correct me if I'm
Yes.
wrong.
Yep.
You have people that rent chairs or rent booths.
Right. Businesses inside business.
Yes, they're kind of independent and they're just renting a chair or a booth from you.
Right,
You are not that.
we're not that.
You pay your stylists hourly, so it's a lot different than a booth rental or a chair rental.
It is, it's fully employee based, they have
Right.
access to benefits, they save for their retirement, they buy homes.
So
they
obviously
car
during
loans.
COVID, when you couldn't style hair anymore, they couldn't either, you basically, you were responsible for them. Is that correct
I
as far
certainly
as?
felt responsible, but I told them, and it was like 3 years ago today, we had to shut down.
And you originally, you looked at the building and they were talking about, they wanted $250,000 for management wealth next door.
Yes.
You obviously said, I can't swing
I
that.
can't do that,
You ended up going to an auction, they had an auction, you went to the auction,
with no intention to buy.
right, but then no one showed up at the
Nobody else
auction.
showed up.
And you got the building for $170,000,
Yes,
correct?
we did. Yeah.
So now you wanna expand into that building, I'm assuming you're probably gonna take bridal parties, 4 or
Yes.
5 ladies over to that side and have more room over there to be able to do bridal parties over there on that side, is that correct?
Yes, really since COVID, we turned away bridal parties. I didn't have the staff. The older, more skilled staff don't wanna see bridal parties on a Saturday. They're not working that show anymore. They're done. They've graduated. They've moved on. They're doing very well, having a very comfortable schedule the rest of the week. They don't need that work.
No
So
more updates.
We
No more
onboard
updates.
new, and we onboard our new staff that way. But the gap, I mean, we're talking 4 or 5 new hires after COVID. It wasn't there. They didn't have the skills. We couldn't take on that work. We just couldn't do it. We did bring in we brought in the low-tech teacher, and we tried to get their skills up. We worked with them. That's what started it. So, I'm sorry, I went off on a tangent. What was the question?
No, I just mentioned that you plan obviously being more full service towards weddings and everything.
Yes, we will bring that back. We are bringing it back this year. We're doing it a little bit smaller. We've rebuilt our staff a little bit. We've got their skills up, so we'll be bringing that back. The ability to do groups was something that we always had before. It was a little unique to us. With a large staff, we could take on a group of 15, and that was unique to something in Jamestown. It's hard to facilitate that in a small town with a small budget, but people want it. They do want it. They want an outing with their girlfriends. We've hosted baby showers, bridal showers, things of that nature, and it takes a large staff to facilitate that. The additional services kind of help fill in some of those gaps too. So it doesn't take a service provider one-on-one with somebody to fill up that time. You can take them over here and they can do kind of an independent service. They can move between both buildings. The buildings are actually connected, so this would be partly connecting them on the inside too. So they're complementary businesses, almost 3 separate businesses, but they work together. They feed off the infrastructure that we already have there, our online booking, our front desk staff, just our phone system, our internet, all of those things. I don't think that this type of services in an independent business, like a standalone brick and mortar, would make it downtown. It would never be something that I would open up. I don't think it can generate enough revenue, but altogether, with the volume we already have, and splice, it's piggybacking. Like, if somebody's there for 1 or 2 things, they're gonna piggyback a 3rd or 4th thing. And I really do think the day trippers, the people coming for the comedy center, if you're gonna stay downtown overnight, the comedy center is wonderful, and we have some wonderful restaurants. 2 or 3 days, you're gonna run out of things to do. So I see this as being complimentary, like, it's the end of your day or the beginning of your day. It's another attraction that we would actually be able to appeal to tourists, where we don't now. I mean, I certainly think locals will appreciate and will utilize it. But it's the combination of that, increasing our volume, lowering our overhead by doing that, because our payroll is really heavy. and the regulations has changed, the entry-level wage that has increased over the last 5 and 6 years, it's been really hard to keep your prices. You can't just, you know, double them overnight and keep up with the overhead. Of course, all our supplies have gone up. Of course, we stock triple what we used to stock just to be ready to go. So that.
And you plan on doing a cafe, do you still plan on getting a liquor license? You had mentioned getting a
Yeah,
liquor.
I'm halfway through that process, but really, waiting on this, because it all connects, I believe that we needed to strengthen our core business, which meant freshening the hair salon portion, which we did in February. We closed for 2 weeks, and we freshened that up. We made a significant investment in that, so that I felt like we could move forward onto something else. That's been really well received, I think. We're starting 2 new people next week, in part because of it, because we added some more workstations, we've improved our flow a little bit. And we onboard people that are probably in your lower to mid-income entry-level work, but they have a career path and they have access to benefits. I have a full-time person that is making well over $75,000 a year, and I have some part-time people that are making $50,000 a year. They've been with me a while. They're saving for their retirement. They're buying homes in the city. It's harder to do it employment-based. It's much harder. But as I was saying before, we went to shut down, and I told them, we did it right. We paid in to the system. You'll be okay. We could file for unemployment, and it took a lot of pressure off.
Mhm.
If this doesn't go through, I'm not going to be able to pull off this big of a project. That's all there is to it. This gave us a chance to dream how big could it be, and it really just all kind of came together when the building next door went up, and it was, how can we utilize this space to support what we already have? And we put a lot of time into researching the trends, and I think we've got the infrastructure to do it. It's already existing. We've already got the traffic to do it. That's what else can I answer?
I can attest to that, it's one of the reasons why we moved.
We were crowding them. It's really pretty interesting that you moved and allowed him to grow, and now you moved again and it's gonna allow me to grow. It's pretty strange connection.
Yes. We've all been in each other's places.
And I would invite anybody to come. On Sunday, we're having an out-of-town educator come in. We're having the teachers from VOTEC come with some of their students, and some other local stylists are coming in for a cutting presentation. And
That's this Sunday?
this Sunday at 10 a.m., so come in and tour and see what we've done so far. We're pretty excited about it, but we certainly can't move forward with any kind of plan as grand as this without the support of the city.
Thank you so much, Christy. Really appreciate it. And lastly, we'll turn it over to Doug at Summit Welcome.
Thank you. Appreciate everyone allowing us the opportunity to speak with you today. So, I started in this community in the financial services industry in 1995 after having moved here, and I call it a sabbatical. I spent 3 years as a pharmaceutical rep, having spent
entire 7 in the financial services industry in Rochester. So I restarted here with 0 clients, and you might know this space, the Slumma Hewish building, the old Blue Cross Blue Shield office, complete with blue shag carpet and funky wall covering. So started by myself, and then a year later, that was 1995, 1996, we formed Summit. At that point, we called it Summit Financial Services. And then within a year, my current business partner joined me, and we grew it from there. So we started in that Blue Cross Blue Shield building. We did a renovation inside to make it a more presentable place to entertain clients. Within a few years, we outgrew that, and in 2003, we moved into the 4th Street building, which is currently where Jeff is, and we occupied both floors. So I always am fascinated when I go in and I see where my old office was and where our conference room used to be and all that stuff. But we didn't have enough parking, and we outgrew that, and that's when we, in 2007, we bought the property that Christy now owns. And it was basically pretty much an empty building, 4 walls, and we basically did the entire build out inside and made it into what would have been considered a pretty decent office space in the community. And we, the only other time we had applied for grants was when there was some facade type grants that became available, I think, through the support of Getty, and they were matching grants, and that's when we did the exterior of the building, new signage, awning, and we redid the parking lot, put some stamped concrete brick in the front, and then Christy joined in on that, and we paved our parking lot, which was prior to that just gravel. But seriously, it's a credit to Christy that she's grown, because when she first started, there were a few cars in the back lot. But by the time we left, on any given day, particularly a busy day for them, we would have 20 cars in the back behind there, and you would never know that we'd fit that many cars, but we did. So on to where we are now. We felt we outgrew the space, and we really felt we needed to have more parking, and we had plans for growing our business additionally, and that's when we'd been looking to find a place, but we really hoped we wanted to stay in Jamestown, and then the Balicki Law Firm building became available to us. So we also got that in an auction, so we figured, well, we got it that way, maybe we'd sell ours that way, and that's how things went down. But at the very early onset, the business development department, they were kind enough to listen to what our plans were, and were very supportive and seemed to be pretty anxious about that particular spot, because it's a gateway building. It's one of the first things people see. I don't know if you know that, but approximately 400 or more cars an hour go by in that northern section of Main Street. So we were committed from day one to turn it into a business center. When we got it, it had not been renovated since the 90s when Peter Sullivan and his company built it, inside or out. And there were actually only 2 people working in it when we got it. So fast forward, some of the things we've done to the building, we moved the entranceway from the back and the parking lot side to the front, which included a handicapped accessible walkway. We put a new roof on, which was quite costly because we had to do all the underlay as well. And we've built additional offices inside that were not actually walled off. We relocated a conference room we used the space better, put a conference room in the center of the building. And then we've done everything from paint, moved tons of wallpaper. Outside we moved trees. And we also worked with the city to get a variance so we could widen our parking lot. That has yet to be done because we ran out of weather. It's gonna be a major redo of the parking lot, and it's gonna add 5 parallel spots, including handicap parking, to make it more easily accessible into the building. I've listed a lot of the things in this piece here, so you can see that. From the standpoint of business growth, we've started, our core business is our Summit Wealth Management, and not to, I think it's easy to misinterpret the word wealth in our company name. That implies in the financial services business that you're providing full services. So we're doing comprehensive planning for people. Nearly everybody we work with has had a comprehensive plan to help them achieve financial independence. We do everything in our power to help people not become dependent on government funds, and so far we've been able to do that. We currently serve over 800 households, and we're still growing, about 75% of which are New York State. We're 12% in Pennsylvania, and we also do business in 25 other states. So the revenue that we generate is coming here. And then overall, about 62% of our clientele is in Chautauqua County, 9% in Warren, 3% Cattaraugus, and Buffalo area about 6%. The part that doesn't, because that doesn't add up to 75 in New York, the other part are other parts of the state that we just didn't name here. But we've started, after Summit Wealth Management, we started our accounting division, Summit Accounting Solution. So, we started that about 10 years ago, and now we do several hundred tax returns a year, and it's still growing. We're adding staff, and then in the last 2 years, we started a partnership which is called Team One Insurance, because we felt that people needed more help with selection of Medicare supplements and also property insurance. You'd be surprised what we uncover when we're doing financial planning, and we find how long it's been since people have updated their coverages, and we just felt that to provide the whole service, we need to do that. To be full service like we are, not just manage money, which is what a lot of firms do, almost exclusively, to do the planning work, to do the other things takes a larger staff, which we have entertained. We tend to hire people that stay with us. Our turnover is very, very low, and we'll have people that are retiring in the not too distant future, but we'll be replacing them and then some. The main goal of this particular growth plan of ours is to ultimately serve more people. We are a multi-generational firm, so it was just me. Now we have some junior advisors as well. We expect to bring on more. We expect to hire more people in our Team One Insurance division as well as the accounting division. And you'll notice in terms of our list of projects yet to be done, we did indicate towards the bottom a human capital need, which is we need it would be more of a higher end hire, somebody who's licensed and capable of processing securities related business. And there's a good chance that we're going to have to go outside of the area to find that. Hope not, but we'll do what we need to fill that position. And we can see, as Christy pointed out, without funds like this, everything, the whole schedule of doing this slows down, because we do have to attend to basic things. One of the larger items is the parking lot, which is asphalt's incredibly expensive these days, and that's one of the major things that has to be done. And we have air conditioning condensers that have to be replaced because they're about to go. But the end goal is that we want this to be a thriving business center. We think it's already on its way. We also rent to ERA Vacation Properties. They have approximately 30 agents that use our Jamestown location. They bring customers in there. It's a professional looking space. We also have an attorney from Buffalo and his firm that are renting, using the space maybe once, twice a month to do depositions. So we've gone from virtually nobody in the parking lot to a pretty busy place. I'm sure I'm missing something, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
I see the to-be completed list, and then obviously this list here on addendum A that you've already done. Are you looking at your numbers, are you looking to get reimbursed for what you have already done?
We've thought about that, and actually we've been in this process since March of last year, and this is our third try, and we were encouraged from the business development department that we should keep our hat in the ring, and so we've been persistently trying to pursue this. We feel that.
So the answer is yes?
Yes.
Okay.
We're not, no, actually no, because we would rather use funds towards these other things now that we've completed what we have already. And we're, you know, the other thing is that we are over budget. It's everything, at the time we started this, has gotten more expensive, no surprise. And you know, not only the labor costs, materials, everything has been more expensive. And then, you know what they always say, when you build something, you better add 20–30%. Well, it's been very true. One thing I want to really emphasize is that everything we've done, almost with very little exception, has involved local businesses, from DNS Glass to Metal Specialties. They designed our doors, took care of the glass needs. We've hired local people to do painting, contracting, roofing, paving, everything. And one of the things that, you know, I feel as a business owner, we've always been very cognizant of giving back in the community, and my business partner and I and some of our staff as well are involved in the organizations. We always have been, give of our time, talents, and money, and it's what makes a community go. This was, we didn't start this project with anything like this in mind, but we looked at it more as a potential blessing to help us. Interestingly enough, COVID was challenging, but this environment we're in right now is even more so, because with inflation, we have cost of everything we do is more expensive. We're using local people for our IT services and other things. I should have written down what our property taxes are, but I know they're at least 10 grand in that building. And as soon as I see what we put into it, we'll probably go up. But you know, we have a payroll that's probably, I'm going to say, well over 300,000 to hire people. So property taxes and income taxes, and I feel that the work we do with our clientele is keeping people here, is keeping people independent, and that's important. So.
I guess I'm just a little confused. You have, what you've already done adds up to $167,530. What you had to complete is, what you have left to do is $83,100. And the funded amount is $108,705. What am I missing?
You're missing
The staffing?
The
annual
staffing,
amount?
yes.
So,
It brings it to 133.
okay. So you're including the 50,000
Yes.
for staff, salaries,
Yes.
or salary? Okay.
Excellent, well, thank you so much, Doug, really appreciate it.
No other questions?
Thank you.
Oh, and I know that you haven't been, we'd love to have people over to give you a tour. Included some pictures here, before and after, and I don't think the pictures do it justice. But one of the, you'll notice in the last page that it's pretty vacant in front, so landscaping is a must. That's on our list, and again, we just ran out of time to do it last summer, so. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And just in closing, on this fact sheet right here, from the U.S. Census Bureau, 55% of Chautauqua County residents are employed by local businesses, and we feel it's very important to support businesses such as these three, as they have a huge impact on our local economy, such as jobs, amenities, local culture, and all these pull factors are what bring people into Jamestown. And above all else too, they keep their services in Jamestown, and over the decades, they have remained here, invested in our communities, and as Christy echoed, to echo her, many of all of her employees are from the Jamestown area, and it gives a lot of people options growing up in the city here that they can work for local employers, and there's a bright future in supporting local businesses. And I'll take any questions, but thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, thanks for the presentations. No, sorry, Kim, we'll move back to finance.
Quite all right. So we did the first resolution. The second resolution is resolved that the mayor is authorized to enter into a grant agreement with the Chautauqua Partnership for Economic Growth of Jamestown, New York, for a grant amount of $50,000 and no cents for a tourism and marketing campaign, subject to the approval of the Corporation Council as to form. Crystal, you want to speak again, like you did in
Sure.
finance? Thank you.
Sure. I think most of you were here. So back pre-COVID, we started a marketing and branding campaign. And so this grant will actually help bring us over the hump to wrap that branding campaign up. COVID obviously kind of put a halt to it and took our focus elsewhere. So we're bringing it back. Want to wrap up the brand itself, and then this will allow us to roll out some initial portions of the branding and marketing campaign itself. So funding is coming from the Chautauqua County Partnership for Economic Growth, as well as Critic, and I cannot tell you what that acronym is. Chautauqua Regional Economic Development Corporation, I believe is what it is. So both county agencies both went in for $25,000 for a total of $50,000.
Do you have any other questions for Crystal on that? Okay, we'll move on to resolution number 3. Whereas on January 22nd, Jamestown City Council adopted a resolution to have a hiring freeze for the city of Jamestown. This is to lift the hiring freeze because it became apparent that within the office of the controller, in an effort,
It's a
that's
corporation
wrong.
council.
Yeah, there's a the resolution when I read that is wrong on there. So second whereas Jen, and third. So this is resolved, I'm gonna skip that then. Resolved that effective immediately, the Jamestown City Council hereby suspends the hiring freeze instituted by resolution number 200201C03. Authorize the filling of the following position due to the essential nature of the position, and this is one ombudsman in the office of the Corporation Council. This position shall replace the associate corporation counsel position, who, as you know, is leaving in April. There were a couple questions asked out of finance, one which we asked for a little bit more information. I asked, and Elliot confirmed that the plan is to pay the current position of the associate corporation counsel is split between Jura and the city, and the plan is to keep it that way for this year. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And then,
Jura will, just as a clarification, Jura is paying for legal services that will move on to Elliott to handle those services. And so it's also freed up for some of the human resources items by creating this position.
I guess I also asked Elliot for a salary schedule and plan
Yes.
for that position.
Absolutely.
Marie, your other question, I don't think I wrote it down. Do you have
It
any?
was about, since one of the issues raised that the housing committee is enforcement of code violations, and that position has been instrumental in housing and dealing with housing issues with the city court. And would they have time to deal with that? If it wasn't an attorney, then the corporation counsel said they would be picking up those housing issues, but I know he's stretched pretty thin, so I had concerns about whether the housing court would be getting enough time to tend to all the issues that we've got, since that has become a major theme about code violations and enforcement, and we don't have enough time to address those issues with landlords who are continually violating the code and not being held to account. That's the question.
So happy to address that. And obviously, Mr. Armando is here as well. What we found actually is most cities have their code enforcement officers handle the majority of matters in housing court, and they have their attorneys will jump in once it moves to a trial phase. So we're looking at a similar method there. The other thing to note is you may have seen or heard that Jura has authorized a deputy position that will focus on housing, that will have some oversight over that housing component. And we've had a conversation as well about being able to handle those matters. I believe Mr. Armando has talked to the city court judges about some of those issues. Yes.
In reaction to that though, if we don't have enough people to do the code enforcement to go out there to look for the violations, tying them up, going to housing court, is it going to address the number of homes that have violations? Because that's the thing, we don't have enough people on the street to deal with all of the problem homes and rental properties. Now you're gonna pull them out of that to go to housing court. I'm not sure if it's the most effective use when we don't have enough people addressing, and I hear it everywhere I go. I hear it at every housing committee meeting about the problems with housing and enforcement and getting people out to inspect. And I hear from the director of development, we're stretched thin, we don't have enough people to address all the problems in the city right now. So, I don't know, I'm not convinced how this is all going to work by taking people from one thing and putting them on another where we don't have anybody else to go out and handle the code enforcement except the code enforcement officer. So,
No problem. I will note that code enforcement actually already goes to court, so that would not change. But certainly we can try to get you a more formal response. I mean, part of it is also funding towards Jura, right? And so the funding has been capped. I think it was raised slightly this year, but obviously not enough to fund an additional code enforcement position. So, but I'm happy to have some further conversations if we want to talk about additional funding for that specific, for code enforcement roles.
One thing that would help, but we don't have control over, is the constant delays in the court system. I mean, they're constantly kicking the can down the road, second chance, third chance, and it goes on, and it drags on for months and months and months, before someone's held accountable for those code violations you're talking about. But that's beyond our control.
we've had that conversation at the housing committee as well. We can only present what we can present, and then it's up to the judge to require the individual to take action and deal with it. And you're right, they have, and COVID really threw everything behind, because they weren't hearing cases, and then they only took them on a very limited basis, the number of cases they would hear each week. That backed everything up. Now they're dealing with evictions, because the eviction moratorium that brought, now they're coming home, because my office, and I'm sure every other office in the county, is getting calls about it being evicted, and I have nowhere to go.
But even prior to COVID,
Oh, yeah.
the length of time that it would take
I
for
know.
something to work through court, you know, if there's no teeth in it, you know, these code enforcement officers are going out there, or uniformed police officers are going out there, writing code violations when they come upon it, it's going to court, and it's sitting in court, and it's being delayed, and it's being delayed, and it's being delayed, and there's no teeth to it. It's like telling your child, wait till your father gets home.
I understand, we don't have control of the court, you know, unfortunately, we don't have control of the court.
So to add some context to it, Crystal just confirmed the court will only hear 20 cases a week. We have a backlog of 500 cases,
Probably more than that.
so more than 500 cases. Yeah.
We typically have over 1,000 cases active at any given time. It can fluctuate. It's definitely not usually as low as 500, unfortunately. And yeah, we're limited to 20 cases. Those 20 cases, if any of them get adjourned, the adjournment kicks them out at least 2 weeks. And it's like shuffle the court calendar to try to get 20 cases through to a completion of some kind. So we are looking at some different ways that we can try to mitigate even the number of cases that are going to court, because it's just this constant cycle. And I have to say, our code enforcement officers do a phenomenal job of, you know, the majority of their cases, they are able to get compliance prior to them needing a court action, because court is a really difficult thing to get the action that we're looking for. So, you know, most of the time they're able to get voluntary compliance in advance. It's just kind of the constant cycle of those that are repeat offenders and know how to work the system and know that they can keep kicking and count on the can being kicked down the road for sometimes years before real action will happen. So we have talked with the judge about some ways that we can start to change that process. And so, you know, we're hopeful that rather than going through this constant cycle of not showing up for court, having to wait for 2 weeks for an adjournment, and they again don't show up for court, and that we are going in and we are going to adjudicate more, which means more prep on the front end. That we're basically, that means we're taking everything to trial. So it is, there will be a resolution whether they show up or not. Unfortunately, that's going to be a larger lift for our code enforcement officers, for whatever attorney represents. So that those are things that we have to kind of figure out logistically. But to get some kind of resolution that also the judge is able to act, because he is, you know, restricted by what the laws are. So in order to get somebody into court, I mean, that is their arraignment, right? So the first time somebody shows up for court, that's arraignment. If they don't show up, what do you do? And even if you issue a bench warrant, it might take months or longer to even get them in on the bench warrant. So we're trying to find ways that we can get through the process faster and there to be less of that cycle. So.
Any other questions? No, we'll move on to resolution number 4. It is resolved that Captain Robert Samuelson is authorized to attend the FIO Regional Coordinator Conference to be held in Saratoga Springs, New York from May 3rd through 5th. Training will be provided for free. The cost of lodging and meals is included, and the remaining expenses will be paid pursuant to Section 77B of the General Municipal Law. That was approved. Resolution number 5, resolved that Sergeants Chris Shimmick and Doug Weaver, as well as Officers Alexis Carlson and Jackie Albin, be and hereby are authorized to attend the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center, FLETC, Critical Communication Skills and Officer-Citizen Encounters Instructor Training Program, held July 16th through the 20th, 2023, Allison Park, PA. The FLETC has provided this course at no cost to the City of Jamestown. Lodging, gas, and meal expenses will be paid by the Jamestown Police Department pursuant to Section 77B of the General Municipal Laws of the State of New York. That was approved. Resolution number 6 is that Fire Lieutenants Jeffrey Hatch and Robert H. Smith are be and hereby authorized to attend the New York State Office of Fire Prevention and Control First Line Supervisors Training Program, class number 323, as conducted by the Fire Department of the City of New York, with classes to be held at the City of New York's Fire Academy in Queens, New York, beginning April 17th, concluding May 13th, 2023. Fees and expenses paid by the State of New York Department of Homeland Security and Emergency Services Office of Fire Prevention and Control. That was approved. Resolution number 7 is that firefighter Alex R. Hallberg be hereby authorized to attend the National Association of EMS Educators, a level 1 instructor course to be held in South Portland, Maine, beginning Friday, April 28th and concluding Sunday, April 30th, 2023. Fees and expenses paid pursuant to Section 77B of the General Municipal Laws of the State of New York. That was approved. Resolution number 8 and 9 both contain to the fire department hiring of future firefighters. Resolution number 8 is lifting the hiring freeze and saying that resolved that effective immediately, the Jamestown City Council hereby suspends the hiring freeze instituted by resolution number 2002-01C03 and authorizes the filling of the following position due to the essential nature of the position. This is 8 full-time firefighters in the Jamestown Fire Department to fill current vacancies within the Jamestown Fire Department, and this funding is provided through fiscal year 2021.
The name of the grant is
Oh,
FY
I was gonna say.
2021. I know.
FY 2021 Staffing and Adequate Fire and Emergency Response, otherwise known as the SAFER Grant Program. Chief, did you have some information you wanted to discuss now? Or I know there were some questions amongst all members of the council, and the mayor was going to research more information for us.
Certainly. So thank you for allowing me to speak to you on this very important matter. The SAFER Grant Program is something that we, as the fire department, have desired to be a recipient of for many years. As you're aware, we've not been at full staff since 2002, and then we've rotated the station closings since that time. Having this additional grant funding will allow us to bring 8 additional full-time firefighters on board with the goal of opening all the fire stations. There comes to be an issue with getting them all trained. We're currently trying to put together a program to train them all locally using some in-house personnel as well as some of our state instructors that are in this portion of the state. I've also been in contact with the Office of Fire Prevention and Control, the Deputy Fire Chief from the Fire Academy. They're willing to partner with us to also help to enable to run a local training program here. It would be very difficult for the Fire Academy to accommodate a large number of students just from one particular municipality, since each municipality in New York State competes for positions there, and the class sizes are restricted. So that is our goal going forward. If it pleases the council, I can certainly share after the meeting's over with some organizational charts to show you how that staffing model would look. This will also enable us, hopefully, with the bringing on of additional personnel, to deploy a second ambulance.
Chief, could I ask you, is
Certainly.
there a possibility of sending them to the Buffalo Fire Academy? Has that been done in the past?
We have sent recruit firefighters to the Buffalo Academy in the past. There is an additional cost that would come from that. Part of our goal to bring them on is to bring them all on together, in addition to the next resolution that you'll have in your packet there. Having such a large group like that would mean that we would have to spread them around. We would also have a difficult time outfitting them with enough equipment to use at this academy and then possibly others at another academy. Given the cost that it does take to train a recruit firefighter, training them all in-house seems to be the more cost-effective option and a more efficient use of the equipment that we have available to train them.
For clarity, does the SAFER Act cover salary or salary and outfitting that firefighter? So, or is the expense gonna be incurred by the city for outfitting those?
The SAFER grant covers wages, applicable benefits, and retirement contributions. It does not cover training or equipment.
So do we have a budget for that? for us? I mean, are we aware of what that,
The equipment,
Impact is?
the turnout gear costs, so to put it into rough numbers, it costs about $4,000 per recruit to send them out to the fire academy. So that gives us a budget of about $51,000. So that savings, if you will, from having them to go to training, it certainly would enable a program to take place here, give us some leeway to do that. Council did fund additional turnout gear purchases in this year's budget, so I think we'll be pretty close on the mark there to be able to outfit everybody.
I don't
13?
think,
I don't
we
think
did that
13.
many, but there were additional ones, yeah.
I don't think that, can you get that to us? I mean, I think it's fair to say that while this grant covers a lot of the expenses, there are expenses that are gonna be incurred in the budget that we may or may not have in there. And I think, with all due respect, we should be made aware of that.
We also provide a float, like staffing chart,
Absolutely.
so we can, each council person can look and see what it currently looks like versus what it will look like under an increased, number.
The other thing I wanted to make clear too is, obviously this is a FEMA grant, it's a 3-year grant. So at the end of 3 years, the city is potentially possible have to pay for those additional 8 firefighters' salaries if we wanna keep them on. Obviously, we would apply for the FEMA grant once again, at the end of that 3-year period, but if we don't get the grant, I'll say it now because I want to be very transparent about this, that there's a possibility we could lay off firefighters. I don't want to move forward 3 years from now, and then when we come back and say, well, we have to lay firefighters off, and people act like we were, there was smoke and mirrors going on, and we weren't forthright by telling people that that was a possibility. But also the chief showed us the number of people that are, if we couldn't get the grant, 3 years from now, he showed us the number of personnel that would be eligible for retirement, that we could, through attrition and retirements, we could retain numbers and potentially not have to lay off. But I just want to make that clear, that that is always a possibility going forward, if we come to that point, and hopefully don't. But like the chief said, this allows us to have every fire station open around the city, and it also gives us the possibility of having that second ambulance, which we have not paid for yet, but we've talked about that. Which we are now charging for this first ambulance, and that we have now, and we're actually getting revenue from that ambulance. The city has made roughly about $300,000 last year with that first ambulance. Not saying we're gonna make $300,000 off the second one, but obviously the cost of these ambulances that we're getting revenue from could potentially also pay for positions or equipment.
So I do have one more question that really just came to me, and I apologize, or I would have asked you sooner. So through ARPA, we hired 4 additional firefighters with the intention of possibly attrition after ARPA funds or layoff already. So I want to make this council aware that we have, so that number you provided to them at this grant included those 4?
It is the current level of staffing.
So it
that we
did
have.
include those 4.
Yep. So under the grant, we're required to maintain the current level of staffing, in particular the 8 firefighter positions, and whatever our current staffing is with that 8. You must keep that for at least 3 years. We received a waiver from FEMA, which allows us to not have a cost share, as well as we have the ability to, we do not need to continue those numbers after that 3rd year period. That's mostly because of our poverty levels in the city, as well as the number of fire calls that we run and the need for fire suppression. So we were able to get a waiver for that and remove some of the additional requirements from FEMA. But as you noted, we do look at the current roster level. You add 8, and then that's the number that FEMA requires. If indeed we do need to reduce that, it's not that we can't reduce it, it's just we just need to get permission from FEMA to adjust that number, which they have done for other cities, depending on just what numbers are at. So they recognize it. Yep. So we have contact with our FEMA coordinator, and they have made adjustments in the past if we need to. So not unheard of.
But also not a guarantee. I would like to see the financial, like, year by year. We used to receive in the past, here's where we're at today, here's with the 4, here's with the 8, and where, I think I personally would like to see that as soon as possible. I know we're a week away from a voting session, but I totally forgot about the 4 additional, so this really equates to maintaining 12 more. Kind of.
So we can certainly work on a cost out for you of the firefighters.
One last thing, Chief, would that bring your current staffing levels to 12 per shift, or what are you looking at with the 4 and the 8?
So if we were able to bring the additional members on, then yes, it would result in staffing that we would have enough firefighters, a minimum of 12, if you will, to keep all the fire stations open around the
Right,
clock.
would that bring our ISO rating down?
There's a good potential to raise it actually to a better level.
That's what I meant.
Mhm.
Yeah, which helps with insurance rates, especially commercial, right?
It would.
Okay,
Mhm.
just wanted to make that.
And we will be up shortly for that rating. We are at 10, almost at the 10-year mark, I believe.
Almost at the 10 year.
Yes.
And some of the concerns from the firefighters about running ambulance calls, is that often, or they feel that they can't utilize a ladder truck, or they can't get to a ladder truck if they're out on an ambulance call. Hiring 8 more would negate that concern, because obviously more personnel to man a ladder truck and possibly be out on an ambulance call. Is that correct?
That's correct, right. Yeah, we have more calls than we have the capacity to run at certain times. So having additional resources available to answer those calls certainly will allow our suppression effort to stay at that level that it should be, to be available to do those types of things as well.
Do you know off the top of your head how many ambulance calls JFD responded to in 2022?
Off the top of my head, probably around 3,500 EMS calls. We did about 1,200 transports, and we used our neighboring agencies almost 500 times for mutual aid.
Any other questions about the Safer Grant
Thank you.
firefighters?
We'll get that information for the council members.
Thank you.
Of course.
Resolution number 9, again, as Chief and I both mentioned, pertaining to the fire department as well, and this is lifting the hiring freeze, again, for the purpose of filling 5 full-time firefighters in the Jamestown Fire Department. These are positions to fill current and anticipated vacancies within the Jamestown Fire Department, funded and included in the 2023 general fund budget. So these 5 positions are already budgeted. That was approved through finance, the 5 replacements for budgeted. Any other questions about those? Resolution number 10, that the Jamestown City Council designates $500,000 and no cents in American Rescue Plan Act Healthy Neighborhood Funds for the purpose of funding the Jackson Taylor Park and Allen Park splash pad projects. Zach, are you handing out, or did you just hand it out?
Yes, I handed them out
Okay.
prior to the.
I know we had asked the mayor and his staff to provide a breakdown of costs. Many of you are just seeing this. We didn't really get into a deep discussion in finance because we left this for the entire group. I don't know if you had any information you wanted to add, Mayor or Zach?
Just that there was, you'd asked for some maintenance budget costs, fairly minimal. We can certainly work those into next year's budget. You're welcome to take a look at some of those and then just let us know if there are additional questions on them. We did reach out to different municipalities. As you'll know, Parks Department prepared this, Dan Stone, and most of the municipalities, believe it or not, do almost no budgeting for their splash pads. So the maintenance of it. They just roll it into their actual costs.
Just to walk through this, just to add some comments, Dan diligently prepared this. I talked with a number of municipalities that have splash pads in the area, As you can see, the labor costs there, they're intentionally set high, based on splash pad manuals. Some of these costs will be just in a normal day's business. Not necessarily all this will be overtime costs. We wanted to make sure we were as conservative on the high end as possible. As well, water usage. We've talked with a number of municipalities that have far more water usage than we do and spend relatively minimal amounts on the waters for their splash pads. And then we added some for a plumber or a specialist in case something needs to come to repair. Dan said that municipalities say that is a very infrequent problem, especially in the first years of operation, as well as some replacement parts in case of something that's broken or it's vandalized. That's approximately the cost of the most expensive actual item on the play object on the splash pad, or can replace multiples.
So I'm assuming though, even though he just says water usage, it's water and sewer?
No. Goes into the storm sewer.
Okay, we'll move on to the next, unless anybody has an immediate question. Because there's a lot, sorry. Resolution number 11. Resolved that the mayor be and he hereby is authorized to enter into agreement regarding the fixed location traffic enforcement services with Bus Patrol of Lorton, Virginia, to provide the installation and management of a bus stop arm camera program, subject to the approval of Corporation Council as to form. If you recall, last week or 2 weeks ago, resolutions 11 and 12 were tabled just for Corporation Council to weigh in, and he has that now. So the floor is yours, Elliot.
Okay, so we have a contract with the City of Jamestown and Bus Patrol. Bus Patrol is a contractual company that has been working under New York VTL 1174A, Section 375, which provides for a pilot program for school bus stop arm cameras for the remainder of this year. You may ask, what is a school bus stop arm safety camera? It is simply that, a camera attached to the stop arm of a school bus. When that stop arm goes out and a car passes that camera, there would be an automatic citation reviewed by a police officer that would issue a ticket based upon that violation. The tickets would start at $250 for the first ticket and then $275 for the second ticket. The technology in the camera is completely owned by Bus Patrol, and the bus as well as the driver are monitored by the school district. I will add, the school board has already passed this contract as written. You may ask, why is Bus Patrol providing this service to the city and to the school district? Well, they make $185 per bus as a technology fee per month, and then have a 60-40 split with the city on revenue. However, there is a clause in the contract where Bus Patrol would only make money and revenue if the city makes money. Otherwise, they would take that loss. With that being said, the expense on the city's end, which I discussed with Mayor Sundquist, would be in really the administration of the program. There would be a police officer going forward and looking at each citation, making sure that that citation happened within the city of Jamestown if it's not detected by GPS, and that citation is proper.
So a question for you, Chief, is how much time would that take an officer and your staff to do
I would
that?
think it would take about 10 to 15 minutes to do it.
Okay.
Just to add some clarity to this, as Mr. Armando had mentioned, Bus Patrol actually reviews all of those things in advance and then forwards a package, including the video, to the police department. The police department then reviews it, ensures that that did in fact happen, and will then authorize issuance of the citation. So as the chief mentioned, about 10 to 15 minutes per the citation to review that and ensure that that did indeed happen. This only operates, the cameras only operate when the stop arm has been opened by the bus, right, or the stop arm has been put up, and is meant to get any individual that is passing the bus illegally. And I will say that it happens more often than not. I found myself stuck behind a bus the last couple days getting to work, and I have seen people pass those school buses, which is very dangerous. And I believe we've actually had some details out as well, trying to get folks.
I'd like to interject on that $185 per bus per month. How many buses does the school or does bus patrol plan on outfitting?
Wasn't it 6 with this period, with this pilot? Is it 6 with a pilot?
They're willing to do all the buses.
More,
I
yeah,
believe.
if it goes all 50 some buses.
I guess my question is, it's not real clear in the contract who pays that.
It comes from the
Fines?
the fines, yeah. Yeah. So there's no fee to us or the school district for that. And it comes from only fines collected.
So this program costs the city nothing.
That's correct. Yep. And I will say, Niagara Falls has implemented it successfully. Warren also has implemented it. So if anyone's driven through Warren, you may see their actually buses are all equipped with bus patrol as well. And then there's a couple other communities that might be coming online. And there's been some talk, some discussions, I believe, with the county as well. But
Any other questions?
Unless I'm reading it wrong, it says after payment of any technology fees owed to the contractor, the remaining portion of program revenue deposited in the contractor's dedicated account shall be dispersed, 60 to them and $40. I still think whether you make money or not, you're gonna owe that $185 per bus per month. I think. I don't know how many bucks. Ellie, I'm sorry, Mr. Romano.
Yes, I would direct you to page 5,
That's where I'm at.
Councilman Reynolds, and then 5.3.1.4, that section.
Yep.
So if at the end of the term of this agreement or any extension thereof, the total program revenue deposited in the contractor, which is bus patrol's dedicated account, is insufficient to cover the total amount of technology fees
Perfect.
owed to the contractor.
Thank you.
Yep.
I didn't get that.
Just one other,
That's a good program.
how long would be the turnaround from the time of the citation till they get the ticket and get notified?
I don't know that.
Hey, we'll contact bus patrol.
Well, the reason I said,
Back.
somebody said they'd be batch times, so I'm thinking if somebody gets a ticket on the first of the month, are they gonna get notified 45 days or?
I want to say they're running it about a week, but we can confirm that.
Well, the question would be when the officer's getting to review whenever they send it, but it sounded like they were batches, so.
We can certainly get that
Okay.
information.
That's the only question I had, is how long would be the turnaround?
Turnaround time? Sure thing.
Any other questions? Okay, we'll move on to resolution number 12, which is authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement with Bird Rides Incorporated located at 406 Broadway in Santa Monica, California. The purpose of authorizing and regulating an electric bike and scooter pilot program in the city of Jamestown, subject to the approval of the corporation council as to form. Ken Elliott, for your weigh-in.
Yes, I reviewed the contract. It seems a zero risk issue to the city. It is a pilot program for approximately 1 year. I know at the last meeting, Councilman Russell adeptly pointed out some of the perceived flaws in the business plan of Bird. However, those are the private contractor's risks, not the city's risks.
Until people are going down the sidewalk, violating the local city code for bicycles on sidewalks downtown. And the police department is called to deal with that.
Yes. So that is a possibility. I'm sure you've noticed probably during the summertime we have a lot of individuals doing that already with private, everything from lawnmowers to motorized scooters to any sort of riding devices. And I do believe that keeps the police department, I don't know, it was over 100, right? ATV type vehicles that were confiscated last year. It was.
Yeah, there were several, I don't know the exact number.
quite a significant amount.
Many of these programs have, and I don't know if Bird does particular. We can ask. They have a built-in speaker that it recognizes when you're on a sidewalk, and it tells you to get off the sidewalk. Many communities and cities have started to implement that in their bikes and scooters, so it uses their GPS to understand if you're on the sidewalk versus the road. So we can certainly take a look to see if that's a feature available. I do know that they, in particular, require that as part of their app, that you're confirming that you're not going to be on sidewalks, and it's part of their tutorial before you can ride any of those items.
Did they mention at all how many scooters they would deploy in Jamestown?
They said they planned in around 50.
Do we have a say how many that we could put out there? Do we say, no,
Sure
we
we
wanna try 25?
I'm sure we could write that in a contract. They also don't plan to have those all out all at once. They have to keep at least a third in reserve for charging purposes and maintenance.
There has also been a request to have these scooters and bikes at JCC as well. So we've had some discussions with JCC about it. There's obviously concerns of micromobility issues getting students to various places.
So this agreement is for 1 year,
1 year pilot.
and then go away for the winter time, so it'll really just be a test over the summer to see if it works.
That's correct, and I believe they want to deploy it this summer. So, as a reminder, Bird just started doing the e-bikes program about a year ago. So we will still be fairly new. There's no other municipalities around us that have done the e-bikes like this, along with the scooters. And I will say, since this discussion, we've had at least one other county reach out to us asking us about this program as well, that they're very interested in watching what we're doing. So.
Anything else? Okay, we'll move on to resolution number 13. Resolved that the mayor and Jeffrey Lehman, PE Director of Public Works and Acting Director of Parks, Recreation, and Conservation, is authorized and directed to purchase for the Parks Department from MTE Equipment Solutions in Henrietta, New York, via New York State GML 103 piggyback contract. 2023 Smithco Sandstar IV, ball field groomer to replace unit number 250 for a total amount not to exceed $29,618.88, subject to the approval of the Corporation Council as to form, and this is included in the 2023 budget. Any questions or comments? Okay. Resolution number 14, Mayor and Jeff Lehman are authorized to execute change order number 1 with Alstrom Schaefer Electric of Jamestown, New York, for the new vehicle maintenance facility based on the change order for a total decrease amount of $47,750 and no cents, subject to the approval of the Corporation Council as to form. Do you have anything you needed to add? Any questions or comments for Jeff? Okay. Resolution 15, resolved that the mayor and Jeffrey Lehman, PE Director of Public Works and Acting Director of Parks, Recreation, and Conservation, are authorized to execute an agreement with R. Patty Concrete and Excavating LLC of Jamestown for concrete work on Genesee Street for a partial reconstruction of 2023 for a total bid amount of $130,100 and no cents, subject to the approval of the Corporation Council as to form. And this project is funded through the CDBG Community Development Block Grant Funds. Any questions or comments? Resolution 16, the mayor is authorized to execute an agreement with Millennium Construction for concrete work on Johnson Street. Partial reconstruction 2023 for a total bid amount of $178,760 and no cents, subject to the approval of the Corporation Council as to form, and this project is also funded through CDBG or Community Development Block Grant. Any other questions? Number 17, that the mayor and Jeffrey Lehman, PE Director of Public Works and Acting Director of Parks, Recreation, and Conservation, are authorized and directed to purchase for the Parks Department from Land Pro Equipment of Falconer via the New York State Landscaping Grounds Contract 2022 John Deere 1570 commercial front mower to replace a 2019 mower for a total amount not to exceed $20,324.37, subject to the approval of the Corporation Council as to form. This again is budgeted, and you are trading in one with it. Any questions or comments? Number 18, resolve that the mayor and Jeff Lehman are authorized and directed to purchase for the Streets Division from Joe Basil Chevrolet of Depew via New York State OGS contract PC 68942, one 2023 Chevrolet Silverado 3500 HD crew cab dump body truck to replace truck number 15 for a total amount not to exceed $67,207.64, subject to the approval of the Corporation Council as to form. Budgeted again. Any other comments or questions?
These are the same ones that we talked about.
Right,
Yep.
they just went to the agenda this time.
Made it here this time. Number 19 is that the mayor and Jeff Lehman are authorized to enter an agreement with New York State Department of Transportation of Albany for the milling and paving of Fairmount Avenue side street intersections from Steel Street to Shirley Lane for a total of $44,447.50. Work is being performed under the New York State DOT's existing Washington Street Fairmount Avenue project, contracted with the New York State DOT and Catco Corp. From Alden, New York. Said agreement is subject to the approval of the Corporation Council as to form. Any questions or comments? And finally, out of finance, is resolved that the mayor and Jeff Lehman are authorized and directed to purchase for the Streets Division from Joe Basil Chevrolet of Depew via New York State OGS contract PC 68942 two 2024 Chevrolet Silverado crew cabs and utility bodywork trucks to replace DPW trucks 51 and 52 for a total amount not to exceed $122,114.20, subject to the approval of the Corporation Council as to form. Again, this was the one talked about in the budget and approved. So we did not get to the informational report on the National League of Cities Grant Award, so I'm not really sure. We did not have enough time for that.
That's it?
That's it.
Sure?
I'm positive.
Housing?
I'm gonna make it brief. We already had a bit of a presentation from Jade Shirey and Lisa Schmidt-Ferrick-Miller on the effects of lead. She gave a very impassioned plea that we need to address this and stop kicking it down the road. As a parent of a child who's been impacted by lead, it's a lifelong impact on children's brain development. The cost for addressing it, we can pay it now or pay it later because it's going to impact them in school, their health, the criminal justice system, mental health as well, and we really need to be looking at this. The Director of Development, Crystal Surtick, did indicate that we're looking at requiring mandatory lead inspections, changing, how we address it through enforcement, and our policies, and we'll be looking at how we're going to do this with inspections. It's going to be a joint effort between the city, a number of agencies, and changing policy as to how we can address getting lead once and for all, whether it's in rental property or homes, how we can get everyone to address it. There will be some funding through some programs that could help landlords, so we're going to try every method possible to encourage and try to get people to voluntarily test for the lead, as they will. This, includes private homes as well. It's not just rental property. As she indicated, she was renting a home, and that home in and of itself, she was unaware had a lead problem which affected her child. And this will be permanent. This is not an easy thing for any parent with a child with lead issues, and can be very painful and very difficult for the parents, along with the child addressing issues that they had no control over. So more to come. We are really going to be looking at more policy as how we can affect this on a more proactive basis. The county has had funding to address it, and she did indicate people have been reactive rather than proactive, but Councilman Sheldon did point out that they had been more proactive in trying to offer assistance and aid, but not everyone was willing to take that up and willing to do the testing to determine what was available and how they could improve the property by making it lead-free. So more to come. That was it. No resolutions, and that was the only conversation we had. So, thank you.
Brett, public safety?
Thank you, Mr. President. We also approved the 4 police and fire training requests that were approved by the Finance Committee. As a committee, we approved the hiring of 8 full-time firefighters for the SAFER grant, and also approved the hiring of 5 full-time firefighters to refill current and anticipated vacancies. Funding is included in the 2023 general budget. We already had approved the bus patrol 2 weeks ago, so we didn't vote on that again. We had a streetlight request that wasn't on the list here at 33155 pole number on Pleasant Avenue. That was requested by President Doltz. That was approved. We have a local law amending the city charter to effectuate a change in the salary of elected officials. We did have the Salary Review Commission present their findings. The recommendation that came to us, I guess, in this ordinance was the mayor's salary be increased to $82,000, the council salary $7,000, and the president would be an additional $1,000. There was mentioned by Councilman Reynolds that the Salary Review Commission actually recommended a higher amount for the council members, but don't have that number in front of me.
I think it was a range for the mayor and then 75 for council and 85 for, if I'm not mistaken.
9.
9 was it?
8 and 9.
8 and 9?
Yep.
I didn't have that.
75 and 9.
I just like to add that, these people did their homework and they really did a fine job searching other municipalities and doing what was right and making a recommendation. And I think they even said that they were surprised how low that even their recommendations were. So I'd be in favor of amending this at some future point in time to have the commission's numbers be put in place along with the 82 for the mayor. It's just a thought.
And once again, we've said this multiple times, that if this is voted on, this won't take effect until next year, after the election, so it could very potentially not affect any of us at all.
Right.
We are not voting, or will not be voting to give ourselves raises. This will be for the next group of people that run for office, and for those individuals that win, it will not go into effect this year.
But we're establishing those rates for
Correct.
You have
24.
to budget for it.
Yeah. Just food for thought. These folks, I thought, gave a great presentation, and I don't think we should second guess them.
Yeah, if we accepted the the Salary Review Commission's recommendation, would cost an extra $5,500 per year for the salary. So, I assume this is gonna be on the voting agenda next week, so.
It would be on a voting,
Just
it'd be
to
tabled
be
for a
ready.
month.
Yep.
So it wouldn't be voted on until the April voting session. It has to sit.
If you do make changes, I'd recommend we get that done now before you let it sit.
I'm okay where it is. Let's just move forward.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. It's, at this point, I think it's just get it and move it forward, but it depends on what the pleasure of the rest of you are.
We could certainly work with you, Councilman Reynolds, on whatever changes that you'd like, if you want to sponsor the bill.
Thanks. I'll give us some serious thought, as I already have.
Okay, we also had an amendment to Chapter 32 of the Jamestown City Code regarding Commission on Human Rights. A request to decrease the number of members from 12 down to 9. There are current vacancies on the Human Rights Commission, and they've been having problems reaching a quorum. So we did approve that.
And this is their request, they wanna drop the numbers down, this is, just to clarify, it's their request that they wanna lower the numbers.
Yes. They found that, they believe that 12 is too many members.
Pretty large for a commission.
It is very large for a commission, yes.
So we approved that. We had 3 special event applications. The first one is the annual Gold Star Memorial, to be held on Saturday, May 27th, from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. at Veterans Park. That was approved. Second one was the Early Bird Concert Series. This is the first time they're holding this. The Mosaic Foundation Band will be playing on Saturday, May 27th from the event lasts from 12 to 10 with an hour for teardown, so there will be no music at 10 p.m., or after 10 p.m. And this will be on 3rd Street at Potter's Alley. We approved that contingent on receiving the insurance certificate from them. And the final one was the Whirlybird Music and Arts Festival. It's been held several years here. Thursday, July 20th through Saturday, July 22nd. Mostly on North Main Street and the Winter Garden Plaza from 5 to 10 p.m. and also other various locations throughout the downtown. And we also approved that contingent on receiving the insurance certificate. That is all we have.
Thank you. Move on to Public Works, Randy.
Thank you, Mr. President. We had 10 resolutions and they were all covered in finance. So, there was comments and questions to any of those that we could have went through. And with the exception of the splash pads, and we did want to see what the maintenance budget was going to be projected or estimated. So we wanted to get a chance to mull that over, and we were not presented with that until after our committee meeting. So that's where we're at on that, but other than that, all the other resolutions we've been through in finance.
Are there any other comments, questions before we turn it over to the mayor? If not, the floor is yours.
I was waiting for you to say, and make it quick.
I have a juicy steak waiting for me. It's probably not juicy anymore.
I do have a couple items. I do not have any executive session items, so I just have general items for City Council tonight. Number one, I wanted to address, and some of you have reached out about the meters. Thank Councilman Russell for raising this last time. Many of you have probably saw that there was some response from the CEO of the meter company. I will be frank with you all, we deal with thousands of vendors here at the city, and we've never had a CEO respond like that to us. But I want to just first off give you a brief history. So as you all know, these meters were actually purchased under a state grant. Those were the ones that we kind of had to use as part of this process. And so they've had some challenges along the way with installing these meters and keeping these meters up. The CEO did reach out. Unfortunately, we've had communications going back to December of 2022 in emails, phone calls, messages about the issues that we are seeing with the meters, the batteries, the purchase of batteries. I will say we did confirm with our finance staff that the purchase order did not go through to purchase the batteries, which we did rectify today with the CEO. But there were various issues, as we found out, a huge miscommunication between the fact that the city also deals with an outside vendor, an inside vendor of this company, as well as customer support and a few others that are all part of this chain in order to order these batteries. At this point, we have ordered 49 batteries that are currently just dead, that were in these initial meters. And as part of this process, we are working with POM to try to figure out what we're going to do going forward, because the use of these meters has actually cost us significantly more. Not only are we having to purchase batteries, which are, as mentioned last time, only sold by this company, we also have a monthly fee for each of these meters that we are continue to charge even if there's no battery in it. So we've, as part of this grant, we had to accept all those things. So going forward, we are looking at and talking to other potential meter companies to see if it's more feasible to look at whether we are thinking of more like stands, as other cities have moved to, away from the individual meter heads, or what else is out there, because the technology has changed pretty significantly in the last couple of years for parking. But we continue to work with those partners to try to figure out what do we do moving forward. Okay, so I just want to give all of you an update on where things are at.
Can you explain you've been dealing with the inside vendor, outside, I'm a little confused from a business perspective.
Yeah.
On that.
I learned this as well. So we have an outside sales rep, right? And then we also have an inside sales rep that works for the company. And then we have the company's customer support, which isn't always connected with their sales rep. So we purchase the meters from the outside sales rep. We then work on with the inside sales rep for support and service. And then there's also a customer service line as part of it. So
That's a standard business practice though, okay.
yeah, standard one, but obviously there's been some miscommunication along the way with the various representatives. So we're trying to resolve that and wanted to let you know just where things are at, right? And we're working with them to try to figure it out. You know what, at the end of the day, they're meters, guys, we'll figure them out, we'll move forward, and we'll get those things squared away. So, any other questions on that?
Cost of those meters are about $5 a day, is that correct? Or $5 a month per meter, is that correct?
That's about right, yeah.
And the batteries are $70 a piece?
Yes.
So, obviously it's front page news the other day. They were saying the CEO was contrary to what you were saying. Does the city have documentation of these emails, phone calls, anything that were made to all these reps, that if we needed to see them to show that we did act in good faith as a municipality and reach out to them, are those available to this council to see?
Yes.
That documentation?
Yes.
Okay.
We're happy if requested to send those to you all. At the end of the day, the company will not warranty any of the batteries or any of the parts. We are out of their warranty. So they said you'll have to buy new things.
I would like to see that communication.
Sure. And I would highly recommend, if you get a chance, to call Patty Culleton that manages those meters. She maintains quite a large binder. Jeff's over here laughing, he's seen it, of every issue with every single meter since we've installed it. So
They're sugarcoating it. It's been a nightmare the past year dealing with this company. They haven't been very responsive.
Isn't there a way that we can see the current condition of a particular meter?
Yes.
Isn't there's a way that you can log on?
Yes.
And you can see if the battery's dead, battery's low. Do we do that on a regular basis?
We
Is
do.
someone in charge of that, keeping an eye on these meters?
Patty does that daily.
Patty does. Yep. You can
And
see
if
the.
any of you know Patty, she's relentless monitoring these meters and trying to fix them.
How is that done? Through a smartphone?
A web page.
Through an app?
Nope, there's just a web page that you can log in on a computer. You could use a phone as well, but it works mostly on a computer.
But she has to also pull the heads, bring them in, monitor them.
So by you saying these have been a nightmare, and I'm only hearing, and the public is only hearing it's a battery issue, solar issue, are you having other technical issues with them?
As you know, we had
Mechanical, I guess,
the buttons
because you made a statement out
froze
of
over the
warranty.
winter. You know, the buttons that they assured us don't freeze in cold weather, that kind of thing.
Are other municipalities having the same issue with this company that we are? I mean, obviously if it's a state vendor, then somebody else has bought them, haven't they? And what are they doing?
I don't know that.
From my understanding is that there have been other municipalities that have had issues, but I don't have the specific list. Yeah.
What's Jeff saying?
I'm sorry.
What did you say, Jeff? I couldn't hear you. You said something after about the other municipalities having issues.
No, I said I don't know who the other
Okay.
particular municipalities are.
Because is there any way to convey this back to the state? You know, if
Sure.
this is a vendor that's not reputable in handling it, then they need to address it, and you don't wanna contract with them anymore.
How long are the batteries supposed to last?
They warranty them for 2 years.
And it is 2 years, right?
Yes. 2 years, right? It's been 2 years?
I thought it was a 1 year, but I think I
Yeah.
read it, I think I read in the paper it was 2 years, but I thought it was 1 year. I defer to Patty, I guess, on that.
I would like that information for sure too.
Sure thing. Any other questions on that? Just figured I wanted to address that for you all since you brought it up. Okay. I do want to, my next item, I want to just thank all of the folks that were involved in turning the river green. Over the weekend, we had a tremendous amount of people that showed up, and thank you for council members that were able to make it. It was great to see. We had vendors, we had a lot of kids. We were off a little bit on the timing of getting the river to turn green, but we were able to make it happen. And I want to thank you all, thank the Parks Department, thank BPU, as well as all of the vendors. And as you all know, Pat Smeraldo helped to plan some of those things. There was also a scavenger hunt, a citywide scavenger hunt that was part of it. So they had a good number of folks that were participating in that as well. So thank you all for that, and glad to see you're all a little bit Irish on that day. I also wanted to just let you know that this weekend until Wednesday, I'll be in DC for the National League of Cities. So if I'll still have access to email and phone and things like that. But just wanted to give you a heads up that I will not be at the voting session on Monday evening. So it is our typical time where we will go and lobby our elected officials for things that cities need across the U.S., including Jamestown. Splash Pad, just a reminder, March 30th at 6 p.m. at the Allen Park Ice Rink. I guess we don't really call it the ice rink anymore. There'll be a community meeting on the Splash Pad for Allen Park. And then on April 11th, there'll be one at 6 p.m. at Jackson Taylor Park. So some community involvement for the Splash Pad. And then there was some information on a lot purchase. Jen, I don't know if you want to let City Council know, give them a heads up.
We will most likely have 2 resolutions coming under new business at the end of the month. Planning Commission still has to approve the sale of 2 lots that my office received bids on. So the bid process has been complete. We just need planning to approve the sale. And then you'll have all that information.
Just be under new business? Just be under new business?
Yeah, we tried to prove that we had a quorum in the last 2 meetings.
And then Jen, you want to talk about taxes, delinquent notices?
Oh, sure. We are just about 87% collected going into the rest of March. I don't know if anyone's received any calls yet, but we did send out our reminder notices on the 15th for anyone that had not paid their taxes as of yet. So there is some time between when the report was run and when people paid. So if you have anyone that calls you confused why they got that, if they had paid it, really anytime last week, it probably got crossed in the mail, but they can give us a call and we'll double check their account and make sure that they've been paid. So, and we're kind of right on track to where we normally are for this time of year as far as collection goes.
Excellent. I also want to just give you guys an update. As you all know, on last Friday, March 17th, there was a fire at City Hall in the police department. One of the appliances in an office caught fire, as what we believe it to be. It did demolish that office pretty bad, and so we are in the process of cleaning that up and trying to restore that. We're working with our insurance department, and we're going through that process now, but it's going to take a little time. Luckily, the fire department was very, very quick in responding.
They're right next door.
They were right next door, yes. And they were able to get that out, but obviously it's caused some damage in the police department, and we are working with our insurance as part of it. In addition, to add just a slight wrinkle to it, the individuals in there were part of the county district attorney's office, so the county is also involved, and the county's insurance is also involved in this process. So, okay. Any questions on that?
So now that you've had a flood and a fire, hopefully you're not gonna get pestilence as your third.
I hope not. We've had a flood, a fire. We had a gas leak one time since I've been there, so it's been a great time at City Hall here.
A global pandemic and.
We did have that pandemic as well. So we'll keep you guys updated on that. Just a couple other items. Behind me is Mark Raitzer. If you guys have not met him yet, Mark will be appointed as the acting DPW and acting Parks Director at the voting session as Jeff is transitioning out and retiring. And so Mark is gladly and thankfully taking his place for a period of time as we continue this search. So Mark, thank you and welcome. And every council meeting goes this long, just so you're aware. That is correct. And then I do want to just point out, we'll be putting out some more information, but there is a plan for the Parks Department Easter egg hunt April 8th. So more information to come. I expect all council members to come up as bunnies, ears included, and help find some eggs.
It'll be snowing or raining.
Yes, so typically they're determining whether they're going to do it inside or outside depending on the weather for that day. So, okay. And that's it. That's all I have.
All right, we're good.
I have one comment. I got called out of a work session a couple weeks ago for medical emergency for an individual with a disability, and I needed to comment. Lieutenant Piazza could not have been nicer, more compassionate, more concerned about that individual. Wanted to make sure they were okay. There was an officer with them at the hospital with their other family member having a medical emergency. They called, they even called me on the weekend. They wanted to make sure that the individual here was okay. I could not believe the length they went to. And I know that's typical of our police department, but I just needed to recognize that I could not believe, nor were the family, just amazed at how helpful they were throughout the whole process, and just continued to be of support to the individual. Contacted me again to make sure that that individual was okay. So I just wanted to tell you, Chief Jackson, that your team is outstanding, and you know they were really tremendous in a medical emergency that I had no idea what was going on. I nearly had a heart attack when they called me out because I thought it was something affecting someone, you know. But anyway, they wanted to let you know as well, the family, that they really appreciated everything that was done. That was the night we had the terrible snowstorm and made everything more difficult and complicated. But thank you to everybody and to your staff. Please let them know how much we appreciate everything they do. That's it.
No, I was just getting ahead of myself on the motion to adjourn. I thought that was.
Okay. I wasn't waiting. I was just gonna